Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
ගෑස් ඕනේ නෑ. පියුරිට් එකට අදම මාරු වෙන්න.
Tonight, taking a stand with the final draft of the UNHRC resolution against Sri Lanka presented. Foreign Minister Ali Sabri expresses Sri Lanka's vehement opposition against the resolution as core group turns a deaf ear to Sri Lanka's efforts.
I think core group, for whatever the reason, is not willing to listen. We are also not naive to understand the reality of the results, but does that mean we should allow somebody to trample our constitutional process? No.
Green light. Petroleum Products Amendment Bill gets green light at the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Power and Energy with amendments. The formula for relief. Litrogas Lanka Limited slashes prices of 12.5 kilogram domestic LP gas cylinder by 271 rupees. Oversight. Leader of the House Dr. Susil Premajayantha says 19 sectoral oversight committees have been proposed to be set up in Parliament. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 5th of October 2022.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening. You're joining the Primetime English News Bulletin of AdaDerana 24 and I'm Andrew Bernard. With a vote on the UNHRC resolution on promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka due to take place tomorrow, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri told reporters today that Sri Lanka will not let any nation impede on the country's sovereignty, constitutional process and governance. He said Sri Lanka will not agree to co-sponsor the resolution at any cost. The Foreign Minister added that even though the core group continues to disregard the progressive steps taken by Sri Lanka towards reconciliation, the country will continue to make its own advancements in terms of human rights and accountability.
This resolution had been on the agenda since 2009. Irrespective of the government, irrespective of the political parties in power, irrespective of the leadership who is there, Sri Lanka had been perpetually on the agenda. So whatever you deliver, they will continue with a new team and this will remain. Despite that, Sri Lanka has committed to do what is required for Sri Lanka. For example, after the humanitarian operation was succeeded in 2009, we all know the peace benefits have been enjoyed by everybody in this country, in Sri Lanka, including the Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslim, Burghers, whoever you call it. Massive development drive have been taken place in various parts of the country. About 12,194 LTT cadres who surrendered after the war had been totally rehabilitated and sent back to the society and to the community, and they are living peacefully. None of them are asking for to prosecute our war heroes outside the country or to bring foreign judges or have hybrid courts. What they want is economic development. Despite that, it is obvious the core group, I believe, based on the pressure brought upon them by some diaspora elements in the capital, are continuing the agenda of coming out the various new factors into the resolution. So therefore, in principle, we have opposed this. But on the other hand, what we are saying that domestically, we are contributing. For example, if you look at since 2009, 94% of the land occupied by the army had been returned to the people. And we are in the process of returning further, whatever necessary. The PTA had been amended and Cabinet recently approved the total abolishment of the PTA and to introduce a new anti-terror legislation which is in line with the international community. We are working on that. 22nd Amendment is supposed to be argued on the 6th and the 7th. None of these things had been given credit for. So what we are saying at this crucial juncture in Sri Lankan history, what we need is international support. What we need is unity in the country. We don't want division. We don't want this polarizing in the council and divide Sri Lanka further. So it is in that context that Sri Lanka had engaged the core group. We have told them we need time and space to deliver, but all our pleas have not been accepted by. The fact that we have won a brutal war and brought peace to the country. The fact that 25,000 Sri Lankan soldiers have laid down their life to protect the unity and territorial integrity of the country has been accepted by everybody, and therefore there has to be time and space for Sri Lanka to come out of it. Yet, I think core group, for whatever the reason, is not willing to listen. It looks like that they want to perpetuate Sri Lanka on the agenda. So therefore, we continue to oppose this, particularly in view of a so-called operative para 8 of the proposed resolution, which is very, very dangerous, intrude into our constitution and territorial integrity and separation of power and independence of judiciary. And already on the 46th one, they introduced that. They want to reinforce that, giving power and money to collect evidence against Sri Lanka and use it to prosecute Sri Lankan war heroes and people who are responsible bringing peace for this country outside the jurisdiction of Sri Lanka, which we cannot agree. That violates the constitution, that violates the separation of power, that violates the independence of our judicial activities. So therefore, we have told this is unnecessary, uncalled for, we cannot agree, and we will do it in our country and allow us time and space. Though the wider membership is 193 is overwhelmingly sympathetic towards Sri Lanka, the voting membership is 47, which is being totally dominated by a group with their economic and other power. Irrespective of the results, we cannot agree or co-sponsor this because that will go against our people. One day when someone with an agenda go and prosecute our people, if you go and co-sponsor this or agree with it, the chances of taking any sorts of defense against that will also be lost. But we are also not naive, not to understand the reality of the voting and the results with the clout which is carried forward by very powerful country against a small country like Sri Lanka. But does that mean that we should give up our freedom, give up our sovereignty, or allow somebody to trample our constitutional process and constitutional governance? No, we will not allow that.
Now, the final draft of the resolution titled Promoting Accountability and Human Rights in Sri Lanka was presented at the UN Human Rights Council today and will be voted on tomorrow. The resolution, which was initially sponsored by the UK, the US, Canada, Germany, Malawi, Montenegro and North Macedonia, has now managed to acquire 30 more countries to co-sponsor the resolution at the Council tomorrow. The final draft of the latest resolution brought against Sri Lanka by the core group at the UN Human Rights Council was presented today. The resolution, titled Promoting Reconciliation, Accountability and Human Rights in Sri Lanka, is co-sponsored by the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, Malawi, Montenegro and North Macedonia. It has now also been signed by Albania, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Iceland, Ireland, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Marshall Islands, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Slovakia, Sweden, among others. The resolution promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka will be voted at the Council tomorrow. The draft requests the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to enhance its monitoring and reporting on the situation of human rights in Sri Lanka, including on progress in reconciliation and accountability, and on the human rights impact of the economic crisis and corruption. The resolution has also sought to extend and reinforce the capacity of the Office of the High Commissioner to collect, consolidate, analyze and preserve information and evidence, and to develop possible strategies for future accountability processes for gross violations of human rights or serious violations in Sri Lanka. Now, Amnesty International says the international community must offer all possible financial and technical support to Sri Lanka while putting measures in place to protect marginalized groups from disappropriated harm. As per the report titled "We Are Near Total Breakdown," Amnesty called on creditors to consider options for debt relief, including debt cancellation, which would allow the government to increase public investment in crucial healthcare and social protection systems. In their new report titled "We Are Near Total Breakdown," Amnesty International said the Sri Lankan authorities and the international community must act quickly to mitigate the widespread human rights cost of the crisis, which has cruelly stripped away people's access to their rights. The human rights organization also said the Sri Lankan government and the international financial institutions must conduct human rights impact assessments before implementing economic reforms. Highlighting the fact that the Sri Lankan authorities are currently in discussions with creditors on restructuring the country's debt, Amnesty says all options for debt relief should be considered, including debt cancellation, which would allow the government to increase public investment in crucial healthcare and social protection systems. It also said any debt relief agreements must not undermine Sri Lanka's ability to meet its human rights obligations. Further, Amnesty said reforms of social protection systems must be carried out transparently and with meaningful participation of those who will be affected by the changes. What's more, they say that the government should also explore all options for accessing the maximum available resources to fulfill human rights obligations, including through implementing progressive and redistributive tax reform. They also called on the international community to offer all possible financial and technical support to Sri Lanka, while putting measures in place to protect marginalized groups from disproportionate harm. Leader of the House, Dr. Susil Premajayantha, said 19 sectoral oversight committees have been proposed to be set up in Parliament with 5 members of youth in each committee. Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa urged the government to release the convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Vasantha Mudalige, and 2 others who are currently detained in Tangol under the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
වසන්ත මුදලිගේ ගල්වැව සිරිදම්ම හිමි හෂාන්ත ගුණතිලක මේ තුන්දෙනාම තංගල්ලි සිරගත කරලා තියෙනවා. දැනට දින 48කට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක්. මොකද්ද මේ අය කරපු වරද? රැට වසන්ත මුදලිගේව මල්වාන කඩවත ගම්පහ නවගමුව යන ප්‍රදේශ වලට ගෙනහිල්ලා මම දන්නේ මොනවද කරන්න කියලා රැට. ඇයි මේක දවල්ට කරන්න බැරි? අවසානයේ මොන හරි සිද්ධියක් වෙලා හෝ සිද්ධියක් ඇති කරලා හෝ වසන්ත මුදලිගේව ඝාතනය කරලා කියයි මෙන්න පැනලා යන්න හැදුවා ඒකින්ද වෙඩි තිබ්බයි කිය. ඇයි මේ රාජ්‍ය ත්‍රස්තවාදී රාජ්‍ය ම්ලේච්ඡත්වය? ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමත් එක්ක කතා කරලා කරුණා කරලා මේ වසන්ත මුදලිගේ ඇතුළු එයව නිදහස් කරන්න. ආරක්ෂක අංශ වලට මේ ඔබතුමාගේ කාරණේ අවධානයට යොමු කරනවා. චෝදනාවක් නැත්නම් පරීක්ෂණ ඉවර නම් රැඳුම් නියෝග තියාගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ත්‍රස්තවාදය, ගෙවල් ගිනිබත් කිරීම, දේපල හානි කිරීමට අපි එකඟ නැහැ.
ප්‍රචණ්ඩත්වයට විරුද්ධයි කියනවා. පෙරාජනීය දීන් කියනවා නායකවාදයේ දීපු හැටි. මේගොල්ලන් පෞගිය කාලේ වැඩ කරේ කොහමද? මේගොල්ලන් තමයි දේශපාලන නායකත්ව දුන්නේ. අරගල කරුවත්.
හරි. නවකවාදයට විරුද්ධව ගන්න පියවර. අපි ඒකට විරුද්ධයි. මම කියන්නේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී පනත අනිසි ලෙස පාවිච්චි කරලා නිකරුණේ ඉන්න මිනිසුන්ව ගන්න එපා. හිරබාරෙට.
මේ පීඨාධිපතිතුමා පැමිණිල්ලක් කරලා තියෙනවා පොලිසියට ගෝඨ ගෙදර යවූ අපිට ඩීන් කජ්ජක්ද කියලා. මේක බොහොම බරපතල තත්වයක්. හැබැයි ඒ ශිෂ්‍ය සංගම් සම්පූර්ණයෙන් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය ඇතුලේ ගෙනියන්නේ ෆැසිස්ට්වාදය, අන්තවාදය, පාතාලයේ ගෙනියන්නේ.
ඔවුන් ශිෂ්‍යයන්ගේ මානව අයිතිය පමණක් නෙමෙයි ආචාර්ය මාචාර්යවරුන්ගේ මානව අයිතිය පවා උල්ලංඝනය කරන තත්වයට පත්වීම මෙරටේ ඛේදවාචකයක්.
In the meantime, Leader of the House, Dr. Susil Premajayantha, commented on the establishment of sectoral oversight committees in Parliament.
අපි යෝජනා කරලා තිබෙන්නේ ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්යක සභා 19ක් පිහිටවන්න. ඒතර ඒ තුලින් යම් කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් ඉදිරිපත් වුණාන් පස්සේ ඒක ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්යක සභාවේදී සාකච්ඡාවට භාජනය කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම මෙහි ඊටම වැදගත් කාරණයක් තියෙනවා. තිබුණු යම් අරගල උද්ඝෝෂණ, ඒ වගේම තරුණ හඬ මේවට කන් දීම රජයේ වගකීමක් හැට අපි සැලකුවා. ඒ නිසා මේ තරුණ නියෝජනයක් ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්යක සභාවලට ලබා දීම සඳහා තීන්දුව කළා. ඒ නිසා සෑම ආංශික අධීක්ෂණ කාර්යක සභාවකටම 18:35 අතර තරුණීන් 5 දෙනෙක් එක කාර්ය සභාවට 5 දෙනා බැගින් නම් කිරීමටත් එය මාරු වෙමින් යන වැඩපිළිවෙලක් සඳහා ප්‍රතිපාදන සැලසලා තියෙනවා.
Now, Samigi Janabalavege, parliamentarian Kabir Hashim was unanimously elected as the new chairman of the Committee on Public Accounts today. Parliamentarian S.B. Dissanayake proposed his name as chairman of the committee and it was seconded by SJB member Niroshan Pereira. The newly appointed chairman said that he hopes to get the support of the former chairman and members of the committee to carry out the work of the committee more efficiently. Stay with us for more news after this short break.
අයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමුතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Uber Eats මගින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ආදරයෙන් අවශ්‍යතා ඇති අයට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ පරිත්‍යාග කිරීමට වේදිකාවක්.
Welcome back. Now, the Petroleum Products Amendment Bill was approved at the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Power and Energy with amendments in accordance with the decisions given by the Supreme Court. The approval for this was granted when the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Power and Energy met in Parliament yesterday under the chairmanship of Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara. The Petroleum Products Amendment Bill provides the importation, supply and distribution of fuel to parties other than the currently existing market players, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Lanka Indian Oil Company. Last month, Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa said the Supreme Court has determined that the Petroleum Products Amendment Bill is inconsistent as a whole with the Constitution. The Speaker said the Supreme Court has determined that the bill will be required to be passed with a special majority unless the inconsistencies are amended. Now, effective midnight today, gas prices will be reduced as informed by the chairman of the Sri Lanka's largest gas distributor, Litro. The move comes as gas prices worldwide have seen a decreasing trend. This is the third price decrease in 3 months, with cuts happening in August and September.
The chairman and CEO of Litro, Mudita Piris, informed the media that gas prices will be decreased effective from midnight tonight. Accordingly, a 12.5 kilogram cylinder of LP gas sold by Litro will be reduced by 271 rupees to 4,280 rupees, while a 5 kilogram cylinder will be dropped by 107 rupees to 1,720 rupees. A 2.3 kilogram gas cylinder will be sold at 800 rupees after a reduction of 48 rupees. Speaking to media, he elaborated on the importance of the price formula as a tool to deliver benefits to the consumer.
We are doing this price reduction based on the newly introduced price formula and based on the world gas price. So whatever the benefit we get as a company in regard to World Bank price drop, we will make sure the benefit will go to the general public.
Further, the Litro chairman shared the progress on the debt repayments made by Litro for the $70 million loan obtained from the World Bank.
70ක් දීර්ඝකාල ණය මුදලක් විදියට ඒක ඇත්ත අයිතිකාරයෝ මුදල අමාත්‍යාංශය සහ භාණ්ඩාගාරය අපි ඒ ගත්ත මුදල ණය දෙන්න යන කාල සීමාව ඉවර වෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපි මේ වෙනකොට බිලියන 6.5ක් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය වෙත නැවත ගෙවලා තියෙනවා ලෝක බැංකුවේ ආධාර විදියට ලැබුණේ. ඒ නිසා අපි ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ තවත් බිලියන 8ක පමණ මුදලක් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය මහ භාණ්ඩාගාරය වෙත ගෙවන්න බලාපොරොත්තුවෙන් ඉන්නවා. ඒකම අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා නැවත වතාවක් දෙසැම්බර් මාසය තුලදී මුළු මිලියන 70ම එහෙම නැත්නම් රුපියල් බිලියන 26ක වගේ මුදලක් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය වෙලා ලෝක බැංකුවෙන් ලිට්‍රෝ ගෑස් ආයතනයට අදාළව ගෑස් අර්බුදය කළමනාකරණය කරගන්න ගත්ත ණය මුදල මුළුමනින්ම ගෙවලා නිම කරන්න. ඒකම අපි ජනතාවට මේ ප්‍රතිලාභ දෙන ගමන් ආයතනය ගැන නොසලකා හැරලා නැහැ. ආයතනයත් ඉතාමත් ස්ථාවරව ශක්තිමත්ව සාධාරණ සුළු ලාභයක් එක්ක ඉදිරියට යනවා මේ ප්‍රතිලාභ ලබා දෙන ගමන්. මේ නිසා මේකෙදී
Now, the government has lost a sum of $6.9 billion or 1.38 billion rupees as a result of the controversial import of stock of organic fertilizers from the Chinese company Qingdao Sivin Biotech Group Co. Limited in September last year. According to a special audit report released on the matter, following the legal dispute between Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited and the Commercial Fertilizer Company Limited and Qingdao Sivin Biotech Company, the total sum of money spent on fertilizer by the government has been lost due to a weak enforcement on the settlement terms reached by the parties.
The National Audit Office recently released a special audit report on the procurement of 96,000 metric tons of organic fertilizer subsequent to Cabinet approval on the 8th of June 2021. According to the report, after receiving Cabinet approval for the import of a consignment of organic fertilizer, a Cabinet-appointed tender board had approved the Qingdao Sivin Biotech Group Company Limited of China for the purpose, following an expedited procurement procedure and timeline. Subsequent to a set of tests conducted on samples of fertilizer to be imported, the National Plant Quarantine Service observed that the fertilizer samples had not been sterilized and that it contained harmful bacteria such as Erwinia and Bacillus. However, circumventing the issues pertaining to obtaining the necessary quarantine certificates for importation, the Ceylon Fertilizer Company Limited and the Commercial Fertilizer Company Limited took action to open letters of credit for the respective fertilizer stocks based on the recommendations given by the Special Task Committee made up of members from the Sri Lanka Standards Institute appointed by the Secretary to the State Ministry of Agriculture. According to the special audit report, when the shipment of 20,550 metric tons of organic fertilizer reached the shores of Sri Lanka on the 23rd of September 2021, the unloading of the stock was prohibited by the relevant authorities due to the stock being in violation of the Plant Protection Act. Following these developments, the two state importers filed cases in the Colombo Commercial Court, which were later, by the direction of the Cabinet of Ministers, subjected to mediation under the advice of the Attorney General. Accordingly, the special audit report highlighted that the government had to pay $6.9 million for 75% of the cost of the fertilizer stock, which is equal to 1.382 billion rupees. This amount was paid by the Treasury Operations Department on the 7th of January 2022. The two cases had been settled and withdrawn on the condition reached during the settlement, which stated that the fertilizers should be resupplied with the desired composition and quality. However, the expected stock of fertilizer has not yet been received by Sri Lankan authorities. Although the period of the letter of credit and the performance bond should be extended and kept valid as per the terms of the settlement, those documents expired on the 12th of March 2022 and on the 24th of March 2022. The report stated that the ability to encash the money paid on settlement has been lost due to the supplier not providing the standardized stock of fertilizer, leading to the entire sum of money paid for organic fertilizers to become a loss for the government.
Welcome back. Now, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka today sold 85 billion rupees worth of treasury bills at the auction. The total amount of bids received were 145.4 billion rupees. Maturity periods of the treasury bills sold were 91,182 and 364 days. The weighted average yields of issued treasury bills meanwhile were 32.34%, 30.61% and 29.75% respectively. Now, the charges applicable on telecommunication and pay TV services have been revised effective from today instead of the recovery of the Social Security Contribution Levy of 2.5% introduced by the Social Security Contribution Levy Act. The relevant service providers have pointed out that the charges will be revised due to the 2.5% Social Security Contribution Tax introduced by the Social Security Contribution Levy Act of number 25 of 2022. Accordingly, the applicable charges for telecommunications and pay TV services will be revised from today. Now, at the Colombo Stock Exchange, today the main index closed in green as a result of the price gains in counters such as Sampath Bank, CIC Holdings and Haley's, with the turnover crossing 2.6 billion. The SPI recorded 9,319.1 points, while the S&P SL20, which showed similar behavior, recorded 2,887.67 points. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in People's Leasing and Finance, John Keel's Holdings and Chevron Lubricants. The market turnover for the day stood at 2.62 billion rupees. Energy sector was the top contributor to the market turnover as the sector index gained 2.26%. With an increase of 0.96%, the capital goods sector was the second highest contributor to the market turnover today. Foreign participation, meanwhile, in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. Now, after rising rapidly over the past few days, oil prices took a dip today ahead of the OPEC Plus meeting in Vienna, Austria. Analysts and experts expected an announcement of larger supply cuts by the OPEC nations and its allies, although the US had lobbied against the decision, according to several sources. The move by the United States came as President Joe Biden looks to reduce the rise in price of gasoline in the US, which is a significant contributor to inflation.
Oil inched lower today after gains in recent days as OPEC Plus producers looked set to agree on deep output target cuts later in the day despite a tight market. Brent crude was down 0.3% at $91.57 a barrel at 8:39 a.m. GMT, while US West Texas Intermediate crude fell 0.4% to $86.20 a barrel. Both contracts rose sharply in the last 2 days. Oil has risen so far this week in anticipation of the largest output cut by OPEC Plus since the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The organization of the petroleum exporting countries and allies led by Russia, together called OPEC Plus, met today in Vienna to discuss output cuts of up to 2 million barrels per day. Sources have said that the United States is pressing OPEC Plus producers to avoid making deep cuts as President Joe Biden looks to prevent a rise in US gasoline prices. The real impact on supply from a low output target would be limited as several OPEC Plus countries are already pumping well below their existing quotas. In August, OPEC Plus missed its production target by 3.58 million barrels per day. US crude oil stocks fell by 1.8 million barrels for the week ended on the 30th of September. A rise in the US dollar has also put pressure on crude prices as it makes oil more expensive for buyers holding other currencies.
Well, that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.